Going live in my semi-darkened bedroom. I came in here to lay down to take a nap because I'm having some sinus infection sort of thing going on top of my nose and everything else. And I was laying there and I was thinking, oh my goodness, what did I miss this morning? I was thinking I missed something pretty big. And then I thought, oh my God, somebody asked me about Jill Rodrigues in the wheelchair. Okay, I have to rant. Jill Rodrigues and the wheelchair. Oh my goodness. You know how I feel about people who are maybe well enough to walk on their own. They're using things that those of us who have disabilities that actually need them. Um, I can't beat up too much on our daughter, Nuri, because she just gave birth and Jill was talking about the huge tear she had. Bossy, yes, Jill is severely hurt. And I'm thinking that whatever is wrong with her knee, what is wrong with her knee? It's probably pretty serious if she's still having the kind of issues that are making her have to use a wheelchair right now, because that is just, that's just too much. Okay, I'm going to say this. I looked at the kind of cruise it was from looking at the other pictures she posted today. It was one of those, because I was speculating about that. It was one of those El Cheapo, look at the sights things. It looks like it was a boat. They just loaded it up with plastic lawn chairs that you sat in. The last time I took a boat ride like that in Florida with the plastic lawn chairs, it was a touristy thing where they were driving you around. And it was near Palm Beach, but it included a meal and going to this private island and stuff, even if you got to sit in the janky plastic chairs. So here's the thing, I got mixed feelings about this. So many mixed feelings. Jill has been dragging around with this knee injury for quite some time now, at least 2 or 3 weeks. It's time to see a real doctor and have that looked at and see what the heck's going on. If she needs surgery, to do surgery. If she doesn't need surgery, to go ahead and do whatever they tell her to do, physical therapy, walk on it, whatever. What's not acceptable to me, what blows my mind about the whole thing, is she brought herself down there to Florida. David drove her in the family van, drove her to Florida so she could visit while Nori was having her baby. I feel bad for Nathan, especially, but I feel bad for Nori too, because the last thing a family needs when they're having a new birth in their family, when they're having, and you know how hard that can be. That's one of those things. It's a real stress on families is adding a child. This is their first child. Jill wouldn't even leave them alone for that. She apparently was there the entire time in a state with high COVID rates. She wasn't wearing her mask ever. And she was just up their butt. I mean, let's face it, they're still newlyweds. They've been married just over a year. As far as I'm concerned, that's still newlyweds. For the first couple of years, you're newlyweds until you settle in and all that. And the family just needs to leave you the heck alone, especially when you've done something like push out a small human out of your vagina. They don't need to be there eyeballing that and telling the entire world about your tear and all that. So when I saw them on the wheelchairs on the boat, I thought, well, Nuri is probably exhausted. She's nursing. I don't have a problem with Nuri in the wheelchair because of that. Because you know darn good and well that she's been put through the ringer from all the pictures that Jill keeps posting of them doing this, they're doing that, they're eating here, they're shopping there. It just looks exhausting to me. And to give birth and then try to recover from it while you are accommodating your narcissistic mother has to be the most difficult thing I can think of in the world. Of course, Nuri is exhausted. Of course, she needs a wheelchair. She has reasons. Jill's bum knee, I'm not so sure that that qualifies as wheelchair. I'm not sure why she's not using crutches, why she's not using a cane. You can see her limping around, limping around, limping around in all kinds of videos the family has done. No doctor's visits, of course, because they're a quiverful family. They don't go to the doctor unless they absolutely have to. Like, if it's real super bad, that would be the only way. And that's really tragic because it could be something just very simple. Physical therapy could help. She could be benefited tremendously, not just from physical therapy, but just going and maybe getting shots. I mean, I've had cortisone shots in my knees. And the other one that's made out of the rooster coxcomb, they use it now a lot in cosmetics. I can't even remember the name of the stuff. There are a lot of different things they could do for her, but she's not going to do that. She's going to play martyr and limp around and use a wheelchair. Why am I pissed off about this? Well, I try not to ever use a wheelchair. The only time I ever do is the airport. And you know something? Do you have any idea how hard it's gotten to get a wheelchair? It has gotten very, 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 very hard. She is doing long-term damage. She needs to get a CT scan of that leg. There's no way around that. And like I said, maybe cortisone shots would do the job. Maybe the shots of the other stuff. There are a bunch of different options that aren't necessarily surgery. Put a knee brace on, start going to physical therapy, go to the doctor, have a CT scan, figure out what the heck's going on. Because the more she walks in this or struggles around with it, the more damage she can be doing to herself. But back to the whole wheelchair thing. I don't like to see people who are not absolutely banged up using wheelchairs because it's become harder and harder as I've traveled to get a wheelchair. And because my balance has got to be the worst thing on earth. When I had my second stroke here, my thalamus stroke, I had so many people that said, "Oh, you're just drunk." And I didn't even drink liquor because of my blood pressure meds. So I fall down sometimes. I've gotten much better at it. Physical therapy has actually helped me and benefited. And your brain will rewire itself. That's the nice thing about neuroplasticity. If you have a deficit in one area, if there's enough brain left, your brain will rewire and be better. But I still need a wheelchair in places with slick floors, like the airport, the shiny slick floors. But it's gotten harder and harder because so many people who aren't disabled in any way are using wheelchairs to get around with in the airport. And I've seen those of us that need them get stuck. So whenever I see somebody like Jill, there was no reason why they couldn't have wheeled her aboard and then let her sit in that plastic chair. When I see her taking up space like that, I got to tell you, all it does is make me angry with her. There is so much about her that is so awful, from taking selfies with strangers who are burying their children to the way she's just horned in on Nuri's life. She's gone to see them a handful of times, quite a few times, I think, since Nuri got married. And every time poor Nathan is around, Nathan Keller, Nuri's husband, it seems like he is shelling out money for something. You know, those boat rides are usually anywhere $20, $25 a head. And I guarantee you Jill did not pay that. Poor Nathan having to make with money while his mother-in-law is there, going out to eat, doing this, doing that. It adds up. And I feel bad for him because I have a feeling he doesn't feel comfortable enough to tell her enough is enough. So you got wheelchair riding around. What she calls herself? Mimi. I've said before, my own mother made my kids call her Mimi because she said that being called grandma was an insult instead of a fact. It's actually a fact when you're grandmother. And I suspect Jill's got the same thing going on. She loves being a grandmother, but she doesn't want to be called or thought of as a grandmother. So that's what the Mimi thing is all about. And she said a week ago she hope she doesn't need surgery. She needs to find out. This has gone on long enough. When you're walking around that many weeks on something that banged up, You really have to go to a specialist and have that looked at. It just is the thing to do. The thing to do. And she apparently has no desire to ever do that. About earlier, women don't go to the doctor, men do, even though I don't think her husband, David, likely goes to the doctor. She leaves her credit cards and cash home when she visits him. Well, see, that's what I'm afraid of. I see poor Nathan probably shelling out money every time that they're around, because when he is there, I've noticed they do tourist things. They go out to eat a lot, and I don't mean they're going out at Cece's Pizza, which I know is very popular with the Quiverful crowd, because you can pay. It's been years since I've been there. It used to be just $5 a head, and go at it, eat as many pizzas as you want. There was a bunch of other like all-you-can-eat buffets that used to be very popular with my Quiverful brethren. Sometimes I'd go with them, but usually not, because the slop they serve in those places has never appealed to me. There are only a couple of really buffet places I like. But darn good and well, Jill is milking the knee for all she's worth. She's getting poor Nathan to pay for everything on the son. And she's stressing out poor Nuri. Nuri needs to be, somebody said in one of the other things, that Nuri needs to be wearing a pair of sweatpants and being laying up in the bed. And that's really the truth of the matter. She doesn't need to be trotting around, taking that baby to church, playing the organ or the piano or whatever she did a few days after having the baby. She was back at it, hammer and tongs, playing the piano, going to church, doing all of that stuff. And I just feel bad for her, because she doesn't even have the freedom to tell her mother to bug off. Which sometimes we got to be told that sometimes. It's part of life. When you're bugging your kids, they're perfectly able to say, hey, Mom, you're stressing me out. And even if you don't agree with that, even if you're like, I'm not stressing you out, everything's fine, you really have to listen to them and back off when that happens. And I don't know if Nuri or Nathan have the personality types to tell their elders to go away. But that's really what needs to happen in this place. I'm waiting for her to compare herself to her sister soon. Bobby, I'm kind of looking forward to that too. She had a funeral for her sister's legs. A funeral for her legs. I couldn't believe that. To me, it was one of the strangest things I've ever seen. It was like her sister was dead. She even had some kind of service after her sister became paralyzed, where she was kind of like saying goodbye to her sister. That was another crazy thing. That's not helpful. That's not supportive. That's not anything remotely like that. That's out there in la la land. And we've seen Jill do so many horrible things that a narcissistic mother might do. I'm waiting to see what happens to the next bride out of the Rodrigues family, because that wedding she put on for Nuri was pathetic. I just got to say, I know she got everything from Dollar Tree, and there's no shame in that, but there is a shame for how she used it, as far as I'm concerned. I was looking at that and talking to my friend Cindy Kunzman about, oh my gosh, she could have done this and this and this. We were flabbergasted over how incredibly awful the wedding looked. Cheapest stuff, used poorly. And it's kind of sad, because the night before they had an anniversary dinner for Ma and Pa Keller that was decorated and handled a lot better at the same place, even, I think it was. That's where she lives and thrives. La La Land. I really want to know what Jonathan does for a living. I think he mows lawns, which I can't imagine doing that, because even in Florida, you're going to hit winter. And if you are not working, you're not bringing any money in. She is in her own little world. You, Wendy, I agree. I think being the youngest in his family, Nathan doesn't feel comfortable standing up to his mother-in-law. I hope he overcomes this. Nuri should be resting, not sightseeing. I absolutely agree, Wendy. Um, that's the truth of the matter. Both her, both Jill need to be resting, and Jill needs to get her ass to the doctor and have that leg, have a CT scan done. There's no way around that. And if it's a matter of not having insurance, some hospitals will give you a discount and work with you if you can pay cash for those sort of things. Was it right after? I thought it was right before, Bossy. I thought it was the day before. The piggybacked wedding on the anniversary party, yes. And the anniversary party was well done. The wedding was just pathetically sad. I felt bad for Nuri, except that she looked really happy, and I knew she was going to get away from Jill and be able to eat, not live in a fear of gaining weight to the point where your mother's pushing plexus at you all the time. And that was one of the most offensive things that Jill said after Nuri gave birth. She made a big post about feeding Nuri her Lexus pink drink to make sure she gets back in shape after the birth, back in shape, thin enough for Nathan. I thought that was beyond. She doesn't need to be policing her grown daughter's body. Hell, she doesn't need to be policing the bodies of her children. She needs to just let them eat and grow. She keeps claiming that where that's not the case, that they're eating, but I disagree. It'll be interesting to see what happens when the next couple of daughters get married, because I know one is in courtship, and I think pretty sure they'll get married pretty soon. And then it will be Renee's turn. I can't remember it. Kayla's next, I think it is. And then Renee, and Kayla is having a courtship right now because they follow that courtship model I was talking about that is followed and pushed in the ATI IBLP. And it is in other ones too. Other places have done that, but it's just ridiculous. They give them one choice of somebody to spend the rest of their life with. They have no experience with men, no experience with their own bodies, no experience with, yeah. Oh, I saw that. She does have Kayla's boyfriend doing work around the house. That is kind of sad and sick, and I think he needs to run or else grab Kayla and get married and move across the country. Move to another country, be missionaries in Central or South America, and leave Jill far behind, because Jill is going to inflict herself and be the narcissistic mother. I was thinking about this earlier in the week because I watched this week's Love After Lockup. I don't know if you watch that or not. And John and Christiana are getting remarried. And Christiana's mother started saying some horrible stuff, and you could see that it was all because she feels left out. So these narcissistic, awful mothers will frequently inflict themselves into the wedding, and the mother was just losing it, crying and saying, "Oh, I was a terrible mother," and blah blah blah. And the mother was saying she didn't trust John. Well, the ink is dry on the wedding license long time ago. This is just something that John is trying to do nice for Christiana. Getting her wedding dress, getting a wedding venue, inviting all their friends, having wedding food and a reception afterwards. Not necessarily the worst thing in the world. And I'm not crazy about John, but it says something for him that he recognizes the need of his wife to have this. Instead of that stupid truck wedding they had that was presided over by an Indian elder. That was pretty bad. And that minutes after she got out of jail. And John was bummed out because they didn't have enough time to crawl into the back of the truck and consummate the wedding. So the mother's tantrum, I was reminded extremely of Jill Rodrigues for some reason. And we saw when Nuri got married, Jill was subdued. She was not her usual self at all. The only thing she seemed to be happy with was her huge remodel of her kitchen. And I looked at that gorgeous remodel. And they did a good job. They did. It was gorgeous. But there was nothing wrong with the kitchen beforehand. The kitchen was a little old and dated, but it really wasn't bad. It was not bad. And I don't know why you would pour thousands of dollars into a kitchen renovation when your eldest is getting married. So then you go down to the Dollar Tree and you buy a couple of strings of ivy, a couple of the little 99-cent lights, and some other things like that. You just throw this together and it just looks like you threw it together. For the life of me, I cannot understand how she didn't give the daughter any kind of a decent wedding. Chex Mix and olives, how sad. You are right, Bossy. Along with potato chips galore. And you know you can get big bags of the chips at the Dollar Tree for $1. So there were a lot of things that you can get at the Dollar Tree at that wedding, at the reception. I'm not saying she got all the reception food from there, but I'm kind of saying that. It sure looked like it. It was just sad. So sit back, and when the other wedding happens, we'll have to cover that. There's a Dollar Tree on every corner here in Florida. Bossy, I know. When I travel, I'm like, where's the Dollar Tree? Because there are some things that I buy at the Dollar Tree rather than spend big bucks on them elsewhere. One of the things I absolutely love is they have these sanitizing wipes. They're only $1 that smell nice and have lavender oil in them. I get those there. There are a whole handful of things that I get there because why wouldn't I get them there instead of paying 2 to 3 times as much at Walmart or Target? Yeah, I tend to try and save a buck or two, but I have not had to put on a wedding in a long time. There was some conversation when my youngest was talking about getting married, and they were talking about doing it here on the beach, which would have been nice. And I told her, I said, if you do that, I'll go out of my way and I'll make it extra nice because I know there are companies here that's all they do is weddings. And I know people that do that. I was helping somebody out with their wedding here, and I've got kind of an idea now of what to do here for that. But she's already decided they're not going to do that. They're just going to have a small one at some point in the future, not even a day or a time. So there you go. So Mama's wedding fever, mine, I won't be able to satisfy unless I crash one of the Rodrigues' wedding and take over and make it pretty, which I could do. They have a craft section and some decent fabrics. Yes, they most certainly do. And every now and then they even have yarn. I had bought the peaches and cream cotton yarn there. I haven't seen it in a while, but I do see it every now and then. And when I find it, guess what? Yep, I load my cart. So Jill really, I guess I should be grateful that Jill did not do for Nuri's wedding what my mother did for mine. My mother showed up in a red dress cut down to here with slits on the side. And I just kind of had to just shake my head. So I don't know what she's thinking, because my mother usually is a very classy dresser. But this was kind of like the old West dance hall girls look. And I was just very confused because we had picked out a beautiful dress that was the same color as the bridesmaid's dresses, the same color scheme, and she chose to wear that. So there are narcissistic mothers all over the place doing their crazy self thing, and all we can do is try to survive it. I think it's more common in Fundy Town than anywhere else that there is dysfunction. I watch up Rodrigues's because I get a huge kick out of them. Like the time that David drank the hummingbird nectar out of the fridge because it was in a bottle, kind of like juice. He seemed to think that it was juice, and he kept telling Jill, juice doesn't taste very good. Well, of course not. It's hummingbird nectar. She kind of sort of did, Bossy. She kind of just was not quite herself. And I was very worried about the entire thing because I had my father there. I had various family members there that don't get along. I was just worried somebody was going to brawl. And the red dress thing did not throw me at all, but I'm used to dealing with my mother. I'm kind of used to her convoluted thinking sometimes. I myself have done some crazy things like that. And so I chose not to make a big deal of it over it. I did think it was interesting that Jill's dress was that seafoam green and it was kind of matronly looking. I would have expected something different from Jill, but I guess modesty would prevent her from showing up with a low cut dress on. I'm guessing. I don't know. So there you go, the Rodriguezes and Jill showing up and taking a wheelchair meant for somebody worse off. But I can't give her too much grief. If she's genuinely not able to walk, then a wheelchair it would be. But I'm guessing that this is something she's going to have intervention for. If it's been this many weeks, and it looks like it has, because they were showing videos of them way back before she left to live at the Keller's house. They were showing her limping around at some of the things that they were doing, some of the functions, and singing, limping and singing. So I don't know if the church she goes to has the whole thing I was talking about earlier from Bethel Redding, where they teach that all illnesses can be solved. This is one of those things I don't think Plexus is even going to help. I was more pissed she didn't care about the health of her daughter and grandson. Wendy, I was too. There's no reason there's no reason in this world that Nuri and baby, was it Nehemiah? Was that the baby's name? That they needed to be there out on that boat, just like they didn't need to be at church that soon. They just needed to be up in the bed resting, both of them. Birth is hard. It's hard on the baby. It's hard on the mother. I mean, my last birth, it was kind of Iron Man. I was up the next morning saying, I'm going home. And they tried to stop me, but I was ready to go home. I was just done with the hospital and done with my roommate and done with everything else. But this was my third baby and everything had gone well. But still in all, not for a first baby, you were surprised by how hard the whole thing is and how much it hurts, and your milk coming in for the first time and nursing and trying to get yourself straightened out, trying to figure out what it is. And she hasn't had that a long time to be able to do that, to recuperate. And her and Nathan really needed to be alone with the baby to do a little bonding, a little family bonding that didn't have anything to do with Jill, but Jill was right there hovering over them all, like the grandmother from hell. Give me that baby. She is all about herself first. When she posted a pic of Nehemiah, she put her name and David first as grandma, then put Nuri and Nathan's name. I hope Lydia Plath's secret crush isn't Samuel Rodrigues. I will scream. Well, see, I was thinking about that too, because Jill has tried to scheme to put her kids in the paths of reality TV show stars. When she got Nuri to marry Nathan, that was once removed from the Duggars. And in fact, when she first announced about the wedding, she said that TLC was going to film it. Well, Anna and Josh were there. Josh emceed at the reception. Talk about a creepy and wrong thing. I'm wondering now if they regret that. But then again, Jill has never said anything negative about Josh, even though all these reveals have come up about Josh and how horrible he is and the things he's done. She's a true narcissist in how she handles almost everything. She's tried several times. She's tried a bunch of times, my understanding, to get close to reality TV stars and get her own show. I almost wish she would, because if she got her own show, can you imagine the avalanche of angry viewers upset with how she feeds the kids and how she puts herself first each and every time? Can you imagine that? It would be glorious. It really would be glorious. I mean, and she would probably think she was doing nothing wrong. She does have a history from running from CPS. My understanding is that's why they left New York State, because CPS was poking around. They were in West Virginia and had multiple CPS calls on them. And West Virginia was trying to pass a law that said that if you were homeschooling and there was a CPS call on you, you had to put your children in public school. And I got to applaud West Virginia for doing that, because there are some parents that homeschool specifically to hide the abuse or to hide the fact they're neglecting the children. I read that she said they were approached for a TV show but weren't interested. Bossy, I've heard that too, but I don't believe it, because of how I've seen her act about reality TV and her attempts to ingratiate herself with the Duggars, with anybody she thinks it might help her with that. And her glee over when she thought TLC was going to be filming Nuri's wedding. It's a damn good thing they didn't, because it would have been a damn disgrace. So there's that. I don't know what's going to happen with her, but if she gets on TV, I'll eat my hat I got up there. And like I said, part of me kind of wants her to, just so that CPS in her area her new area would be aware of her finally. I guess they weren't invited to Nathan's wedding. No, you know why they weren't invited to any more Duggar weddings? I don't remember which Duggar girl it was, whether it was Jessa or one later, but one of the Duggar girl weddings that they were invited to and they went to, they leaked all about it. And I think Jill even put up a picture or two. But they spilled all the beans on the wedding way before, you know how People magazine is the official mouthpiece of the Duggars, and how usually when anyone talks about the Duggars in any way, shape, or form, or any weddings or anything, it's usually front and center with People magazine, the official Duggar mouthpiece is what I've called them for years. So there's that. So they stopped being invited to Duggar weddings at that point, and I don't think the Duggars have had anything more to do with them. Now, poor Anna has to, because they're family now. They are family. Even though I would love to pick Jill's brain about Josh Duggar now that he is going to trial for this awful SA against children. I would love to hear what her thoughts are on that. I suspect she still supports him. Anna supposedly still supports him, and she's been hanging out at the place with the Reavers. That's kind of weird too. So that's the interesting thing to me about this. Jill has taken so many incredibly bad things that she's done, that every time I think, well, there's nothing Jill could do that would shock me. Well, let me tell you something. I was pretty shocked that she inserted herself into this birth and hung around and didn't give the couple any alone time at all. Just inserted herself. This is my grandbaby. I understand wanting to hold your grandbaby and spend time with your daughter, but guess what? That does not supersede your daughter's need for rest and your daughter and son-in-law's need to bond with their baby and each other, and this important time you spend together after the baby's born. It doesn't supersede any of that. Bossy, I guess so. Every time I think this narcissist can't possibly do anything crazier, she does. From her videos that she records on her chair in the bathroom, I would not have an upholstered chair in the bathroom. I got a shower chair in the shower, and I'm going to get a beautiful bamboo one soon. But If you look at the house pictures, some of that stuff is crazy. Those bathrooms look nuts. And then she just puts an upholstered chair in the bathroom. Oh my goodness. I think about those things. I watch her videos sometimes going, particularly when I see at one point they had a fuse box in the bathroom over one of the toilets. There's the upholstered chair. There's every little tchotchke she could come up with. She's got all over that house, and I'll look at that and think, dust, 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 dust. But I hate dusting. So I tend to keep that stuff to a minimum if I can. It's just a bunch of dust catching eyesores. But I want her to go back up to Ohio because I want to see how the barndominium living room turns out because they just put a living room on it and it looks, I'm just going to come out and say, it looks like maybe they designed this themselves. It doesn't look right now very attractive at all the way it's doing. So Jill is kind of the clown of the entire Quiverful world. She thinks we're all a bunch of scoffing Satan worshipers, but that's not it. We're just looking at her own behavior and seeing, hey, that ain't normal. That sure ain't normal at all. And I can hear I'm starting to slur. My drugs are kicking in for my asthma. So I'm going to go back and lay down and think more about Jill and the upcoming weddings and things. I'll probably do a countdown to the wedding like I did last time that some of you probably didn't see, where every day the week before the wedding was like 7 things she may have told her daughter about the wedding night, 5 reasons why the kids will finally eat, just all kinds. I just did some silly stuff, and I'm going to do silly, silly stuff again because it's fun. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go lay down. You have a great evening, afternoon, morning, whatever it is where you are. Grab that day by the horns and kick its rear. I'm going to rest well and feel better. I definitely will. Thank you, Wendy. I hope Nori feels her sister's on and what really happened. I hope she does too. Sisterly love. Bye.